All right, welcome. Today we're going to tackle a really critical decision for anyone working with Microsoft Business Central: API pages versus API queries. And look, choosing the right one, it's the difference between a super fast, reliable integration and one that's, well, plagued with problems. It all boils down to this one simple question. The entire choice, everything we're about to talk about, it all hinges on what your application really needs to do with data from Business Central. So the first step, before you even think about writing a single line of code, is to nail down that interaction. So here's what we're going to do. We'll start with that core decision, then we'll dig into what API pages and API queries are all about. After that, we'll put them head to head and then wrap up with a really powerful strategy that uses both of them together for the absolute best performance. Let's get into it. Okay, so before we get into all the nitty-gritty details, let's just set the stage. The very first thing, and honestly the most important step, is to figure out exactly what kind of interaction your integration needs. If you just glance at them, they seem almost identical. They both use that modern REST API approach. You can connect to them with tools like Power BI or Power Automate, but here's the catch. They are not interchangeable. Their whole purpose, deep down, is fundamentally different, and getting that from the start is absolutely crucial. So let's explore our first path. If your integration needs to create stuff, update stuff, or delete stuff inside Business Central, the API page isn't just a good option, it's your only option. And its defining feature is that full CRUD support. Create, read, update, delete. That right there is what makes it absolutely essential for any kind of two-way data exchange. Bottom line, if you need to write data back into Business Central, you gotta use an API page. This design gives you a ton of flexibility. You can manage a whole record, like a sales header and all of its lines, in one single transaction using something called a deep insert. And with webhook support, you can even have Business Central ping other systems whenever data changes. It's really built for that real-time, transactional kind of integration. Now, this table is where things get really interesting because it shows how a few simple properties can literally make or break your entire integration. For instance, if you don't set your OData key fields to System ID, guess what? Power Automate and Power Apps just won't work right. So yeah, getting these little details right from the get-go is critical for compatibility and, just making sure everything actually works. Okay, on to path number 2. Now, when your main goal is just to read massive amounts of data as efficiently as possible, especially for reporting or analytics, the API query is, without a doubt, the best tool for the job. The key phrase to focus on here is on the server. All the heavy lifting, joining tables, filtering data, even doing calculations, it all happens at the database level, way before it ever even touches the application layer. And that right there is the secret to its speed. Instead of your code having to loop through record after record, making all these different requests, the API query just bundles everything into one single highly optimized SQL statement. This cuts down network traffic and processing time like you wouldn't believe, making your data retrieval incredibly fast. This table really shows you the power you get with API queries. You have full SQL-level control over how tables are joined, right inside your AL object. This completely gets rid of the need to do all that complicated data assembly on the client side, whether that client is Power BI or some custom app. Ooh, and it does the math for you too. Things like sum and count happen on the server. And if a SIFT index exists, that's Business Central's awesome tech for pre-calculating totals, it can grab that data at lightning speed. And here's a pro tip for you. Using the count method is a clever way to get a distinct list of values, a feature you can't really get anywhere else in AL. All right, let's put these two head to head. When you see them laid out side by side, the differences just become crystal clear. So the big takeaway is this. API pages are built for transactional data exchange, reading and writing individual records. API queries, on the other hand, are all about high-performance, read-only data retrieval. They're two different tools for two very different jobs. Simple as that. And you really want to be careful to avoid these common performance traps. A pattern that seems totally harmless during development, like adding a calculated field to an API page, can cause serious performance problems under a real production load. Why? Because it has to evaluate that logic for every single record it returns. So what's the ultimate takeaway here? Well, the best designed, most performant integrations don't actually choose one over the other. They use both, each one for the specific purpose it was designed for. This right here is the perfect way to think about it. Instead of building one giant monolithic query, you build small, focused, reusable queries. Each Lego block does one thing and does it well, like getting customer details or item sales. This makes them a breeze to test, to maintain, and to combine in different ways, which is especially powerful when you're building a data model for a tool like Power BI. And this slide lays out the winning strategy perfectly. You build a really robust and scalable solution by intentionally separating your read path from your write path. You use API pages to handle all those transactional writes, and you use a collection of API queries to feed all your read-only needs, like your reports and analytics. And for anyone who uses Power BI, this approach is a total game changer. Each one of those Lego block queries becomes a clean, independent table in your semantic model. This makes sure that Power BI's query folding works correctly, which pushes all the heavy processing back to the server and dramatically improves your report refresh performance. So the final question you should ask yourself is this. By separating your read and write concerns right from the very beginning, you're not just solving today's problem. You're actually engineering a solution that's designed to perform, to scale, and to be easily maintained long into the future.